Coming up, reflecting on 20 years since the September 11th terrorist attacks, resurrecting a wrecked airplane,
and see a 16-year-old solo 4 airplanes on his birthday. AOPA Live this week begins in just a moment.
I remember developing A20 and thinking, is this as good as it can be? Can I make it better? You can't have the mindset that it's impossible to make it better. If you're already at that mindset, you might as well go home.
This is AOPA Live This Week with Tom Haines and Alyssa Cobb.
Well, this Saturday marks the anniversary of one of the most horrific events in our lifetimes. 20 years ago, hijacked airliners crashed into the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and a field outside Shanksville, Pennsylvania.
And that sure changed things forever. And while the terrorist attack used commercial airliners, much of the immediate government reaction was directed at general aviation, and the reaction lingers on. We now have a special flight rules area around Washington, D.C., stadium TFRs, TFRs over the Disney properties, and special rules for foreign flight students. And here are some of the memories of a few AOPA folks who were here on the front lines immediately after the attacks.
Well, I remember walking in my office, which was one of the few offices at the time, I guess, that had a TV set, and everybody's gathered around looking at the screen and quick to inform me that a plane had hit the World Trade Center. And of course, my first thought and their first thought, oh no, now we have more ills for general aviation. And then in the end, we found out it was an airliner. But that was just the start of general aviation, in many respects, being blamed for this, even though our planes weren't involved at all.
I remember that a bunch of us came into your office and actually saw the second plane hit the World Trade Center. But what was your thought about what it would do to general aviation?
Well, nothing like this had ever happened before, but it was obviously more what's happening to aviation as a whole as soon as it was determined that these were air carriers. The airliners just completely stopped, and all general aviation flights had to stop. I think the biggest concern was that when will both airliners and general aviation get back in the air? And lots of rumors going around, both Washington and everywhere else. Gee, you know, these little planes could be just as big a factor as the big ones. They fly around, there's no radar control, nobody knows who they are, what they are.
Well, and one of the first things that you did was to tell Melissa to get down to the FAA, take her laptop there with her, and stay there until everything was fixed, right?
Yeah, I didn't even say it in that nice a term. It's get out of here and don't come back till you've solved this problem.
So I'm not misremembering that. No, it was pretty. I suspect your phone call probably prompted that, but I recall you literally did call me into your office and said, get down there and don't come back. And one of the reasons I was the one to do that is at that time I ran all of our policy stuff related to airspace air traffic control. So any airspace air traffic control policy or anything that goes wrong in the system, I lead our team, or at that time led our team on those efforts. So I did do that, and I will say the advantage I had is because I did a lot of work at the FAA, I had an FAA badge, and if I had not had my FAA badge that day, I doubt that I would have gotten into the building. And I doubt that I would have gotten upstairs to the 10th floor, which is where all the executives are, including the FAA administrator. And I doubt that I would have gotten into the situation room they had set up. And it turns out I was the only civilian ever in that room working to help open up the airspace. The door closed pretty quickly behind me once some of the defense folks figured out I was not an actual FAA employee.
As I recall, you were so close to where the decision-making was going on that before a NOTAM came out to pilots or to AOPA, you would call us with what's going to be in the NOTAM.
That's right. In fact, I had a part. Fortunately, was able to help build some of those NOTAMs, but more importantly, kill some of those NOTAMs. By the end of September, it was looking pretty dire. It was looking like they were going to put prohibitive airspace over pretty much every major city, at least for VFR traffic, and make it permanent.
Yeah, I mean, we immediately put our communication channels to work, mostly the websites and email newsletters too at that time, to try to start informing pilots about what was going on. Of course, our 800 line to our call center was overwhelmed with calls quickly, people wanting information. And we soon were recognized over the course of just a few days as the place to go for the latest information. We even heard and learned later that the FAA and Flight Service were directing people to call AOPA to find out what was happening from an airspace standpoint and with NOTAMs and all that sort of thing. And it was, you know, rewarding to be a part of that. But it was also frustrating at times because some of the requirements they were putting on us were ridiculous, you know, quickly telling us we can't fly over nuclear power plants after they had taken down all the off the charts where those power plants were and how is it we're not supposed to fly there if we don't know where they are. You can watch the full video on AOPAlive.org or YouTube, and we have a special package of articles on 9/11 in the September issue of AOPA Pilot Magazine. So Alyssa, it really was a remarkable time here, the way the team pulled together and all that we were able to accomplish, and mostly, particularly in the early days, is just being a kind of a valuable communication outlet to get information across. So yeah, it was pretty remarkable.
You know, and being that communication outlet, I can tell you firsthand that was extremely valuable to me. I was studying at Ohio University at the time and watching the events unfold, and I would get the email alerts with the updates on what was happening with the airspace, because as a pilot at the time I was like, you know, will I be able to fly? When will things open up? And it was helpful having that information coming from AOPA. Yeah,
it really was. So if you're planning to fly in the New York area this weekend, be advised there is a very complicated TFR over the whole metropolitan area. So just watch out for that. It'll be very difficult to safely fly up the Hudson Corridor, for example, which might be something that people would want to do on this anniversary, but just be very wary of the TFRs.
AOPA is monitoring a proposed fee at Nassau's Lynden Pingling International Airport in the Bahamas. Airport management is proposing a $28 fee per person arriving via an international private aircraft flight. Now, management says they need the fee revenue for airport construction projects. AOPA will submit comments on the proposal, and our initial concern is that the fee would create an extra cost burden for passengers on GA flights compared to commercial flights.
Now, soloing an airplane at any age is a feat worth celebrating, but Finley Taylor soloed not just one, but 4 airplanes on his 16th birthday. Finley is the son of Recreational Aviation Foundation Director Steve Taylor.
My dad soloed a Piper Cub on his 16th birthday, and I really wanted to do that as well. So on my birthday, I soloed a RC-3 CB Amphib near our home on Lake Sammamish here in Washington. I soloed a J3 Cub on grass just south of Lake Tapps here in Washington, as well as a Ronca Champ at the same airport. And then we headed over to Tacoma Narrows, also in Washington, and I soloed a 172.
Finley soloed the CB first, but it wasn't his favorite of the 4.
You know, the CB, it's so heavy in the controls that it felt really similar to just having an instructor next to me, and I kind of did my regular takeoff thing. You know, I got about 20 feet off the water and then looked over and went, holy cow, there's no one else here. And I just kind of sat back and kind of stretched my arms out like, man, this is nice. So, I mean, I've got probably close to 200 hours of right seat time in that thing. You know, watching my dad do his thing. And so being finally able to solo, that was pretty cool. But also there's something just so cool about, you know, soloing a J3 Cub on grass. That was probably my favorite, the J3.
Finley hopes to take his private pilot check ride on his 17th birthday, and he is planning for a career in aviation. Congratulations, Finley, and also to you, Dad Steve, as well.
Wow, that's quite a feat, Finley. Great job. Well, our next Aviator Showcase is coming up soon. The one-day event is designed to connect pilots and aircraft owners to the general aviation industry. We had our first showcase in Manassas, Virginia a couple of weeks ago, and the next showcase will take place at Fort Worth Alliance Airport in Texas on October 1st. Now, once again, registration is required and there is a $20 fee to attend. Just visit our website to find out more information.
So why in the world would somebody buy a wrecked aircraft, ship it across the ocean, and then spend more than $300,000 resurrecting the wreck? Well, when you see Dave Coleman's rare aircraft, you may understand. Tom Horn reports.
Dateline, Coventry, England, 2017. Somebody lands a 1982 Turbo Seminole so hard that the nose gear collapses and both props hit the runway. It's a case of insta-junk. The plane's value is in the tank. It's a salvage case. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in Chicago, Dave Coleman sees the airplane on the internet and makes his move.
But I came across this one on a Sunday morning at about 8 o'clock in the morning on the internet and made an inquiry, asked a few questions, and then made a decision to fly to England and look at the airplane. We hired the FBO in Coventry, England, and they took the airplane apart, put it into a 40-foot shipping container. I hired a friend of mine to arrange for the transportation and came over on a boat, and then from Gary, Indiana, and then from Gary, Indiana, it took a truck to Kenosha.
$15,000, and a couple months later, Coleman's plane is uncrated at his home base in Kenosha, Wisconsin. He's got a rare bird. Only 87 Turbo Seminoles were built, but he has to restore this one. Question is, how do you get from this to this? It took a lot of help.
Myself and a friend of mine, Joel Randall, who is a A&P mechanic with an IA, we did the work, and we had friends and family and, you know, various folks who gave some time, and some of it was paid, but a lot of it was unpaid labor. When I went into the whole thing, I wanted it to be a family effort. I wanted to introduce my kids to aviation. My daughter, Naomi, did a lot of paint work, but not paint work, finishing type paint work, but a lot of touch-up work. For my son, Ben, who at the time was 8, he did a lot of cleaning, and then also when the airplane was getting ready to fly, I had him and one of the neighbor kids install fairings on the airplane. My wife, Julie, provided the most generous support for the project by helping out cleaning, bringing food, and putting up with it, because I spent a lot of nights and weekends at the airport.
A new panel, an overhauled engine, 2 new props, and new paint, including luminescent paint for the prop tips.
While I was researching the Sherwin-Williams product, I kind of drifted into some of the other products that they carried and noticed that they had a photoluminescent paint. We painted the prop tips with what they call the Afterglow photoluminescent product. When I show up at night, that is the first comment, but even during the daytime, for the overall beauty and luster of the aircraft, I get a lot of compliments on the paint job as well.
2 years and $309,000 later, Coleman has his reborn 185-knot cruising machine. It's a one-of-a-kind, probably the best of the 38 remaining on the registry. It's luxurious and quirky, with carburetors and turbocharging, plus prop de-ice, standard on most European Turbo Seminoles. In all, the restoration took nearly 4,000 hours of work. Question is, would he do it again?
I would say no. No, I don't think so.
Because?
It's a hell of a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And at the end of the day, I'm still upside down financially in the airplane. There is one thing I will tell you, and that is you will never, ever, ever have a greater pride of ownership than when you do something like this yourself.
Tom Horn, AOPA Live.
You can read more about this special Turbo Seminole in the October issue of AOPA Pilot Magazine. So Alyssa, I have a little bit of time in a Turbo Seminole, and I can tell you it did not look like that.
a pretty amazing story and restoration job.
Yeah, really, that is dedication, but the result is really very nice. Good for him.
It is. Well, coming up after the break, a record-breaking flight through 2 tunnels.
And flying to go metal detecting. We'll be right back.
Your plane is a valuable tool. With the Genesis Aerosystems STEC 3100 digital autopilot, you can rest assured you will arrive safely to your destination. The 3100 is the industry's most advanced autopilot for single and twin-engine aircraft, providing exceptional workload reduction, safety-enhancing capabilities such as straight and level mode and speed protection. To learn more, visit our website today.
Welcome back. Well, hey, don't try this at home. Red Bull pilot Dario Costa has become the first pilot to fly through 2 tunnels that happened in the Katalka tunnels on Turkey's northern Marmara Highway. The flight set a Guinness record and 4 other records. Now, Red Bull has a long history of aviation-related feats and has a good safety protocol. They do take this stuff seriously. Costa was overwhelmed with emotion after completing the feat. The Italian pilot did it in a Zivco Edge 540 made in Guthrie, Oklahoma. You can see the full video on Red Bull's social media pages. So Alyssa, I don't know if you've seen this thing or not, but it is phenomenal. The guy stays absolutely on the center line. And of course, there's a lot of motivation, I guess, to get it right, but it was really quite a flying feat. It was,
you know, a little nerve-wracking to watch, but I guess, you know, he's all set to be the next James Bond, maybe.
I think so, yeah, that's a great setup.
Yeah. Well, speaking of attention-grabbing flights, billionaire Richard Branson's first commercial spaceflight in early July certainly got a lot of attention. But now Branson's company, Virgin Galactic, is getting some unwanted attention from the feds. The Associated Press and other media outlets are reporting that Virgin Galactic's Spaceship Two was grounded by the FAA. Spaceship Two strayed outside of protected airspace during the July flight. Now, it's not clear if the deviation was just an airspace violation or if the passengers on the flight were also at risk. The FAA says Spaceship Two will remain grounded until they are finished investigating the mishap. Virgin Galactic says they have a fundamental commitment to safety at every level.
And next week is Drone Safety Awareness Week. The Unmanned Aircraft Safety Team is hosting the event. A number of live online drone safety seminars will be offered. They'll cover everything from introductions to drones to how to safely fly drones for agriculture. You can watch the content at the link on your screen. And they're called the most beautiful aerial images of the year. You're looking at the overall winner of the Drone Awards 2021. The shot of pink-footed geese from Norway took home the top place. It and other winning entries will be part of the exhibit called Above Us Only Sky at the Siena Awards Festival. You can see the other winners and entries on droneawards.photo.
Well, aviation opens the world up and has real practical value. And we've seen it recently with groups using airplanes to fly in food to hurricane-ravaged areas. For you, maybe it's turning a long car drive into a short hop in the air. Or it could be as practical as using airplanes to scout areas you want to hunt for treasure. A group of AOPA staffers recently used a 172 to do just that.
I was the pilot for today's mission to bring us over here and do some metal detecting in a wonderful place on the Eastern Shore. I brought my lovely wife, Sherry, with me. We enjoy doing this together, and she loves flying. Like, she's a big time pilot and student pilot, so we love flying together, so good excuse to get the airplane out and go have some fun.
We sort of haphazardly got to talking one day about metal detecting and discovered that we all like to do it, so we're always in search of new places to metal detect, so we were out here at this private airstrip on a beautiful farm.
You know, we're really in search of stuff that's old, you know, 1800s or colonial era, Civil War era. So, you know, you can look at maps and see what was going on in the 1800s and then go from the air and see what's it look like now. There's a lot of valuable perspective you get from being above. Tons and tons of stuff.
I think both flying and metal detecting are two things that I have just found that really kind of humble me or just make me really think about life. I mean, think about it when you're in the air and you're flying, you know, you're looking down and I really start to realize you're just this little speck in the big picture of things. And I think metal detecting is kind of the same way, where we're digging up history, we're digging up somebody's life and what they went through and the hardships that they did, and we're the first one to touch it in like 150 years. And so I think between the two, I love the fact that we can get out and escape from our everyday crazy life, and that we can kind of just do these things and really kind of re-ground us and just kind of re-humble, you know?
Yeah. You know, I find that most of what we recover or dig up or find is really common stuff, like a spoon or a fork or a button off somebody's jacket or something like that. It's really common stuff, or a coin, a 1 cent coin they dropped in the 1800s. And so it's small, and it would be everyday life that they probably just tossed aside without
didn't
a
think
second
much of.
thought. And here we are 150 years later connecting with it. And it's like that sense of connection, that bridge to history, where they were people just like us, going through stuff just like we do, and the ordinary household things that were part of their life. To me, it helps us connect their story and our story.
Yeah, so we just got a signal here, and I popped the plug out, and I can see something around. I don't know if it's a coin or a button. Could be a side of a shotgun shell that looks a little thin for that. I don't know if you can see it right here. See the green sticking out. So I'm just going to carefully, okay, so I can already tell what this is. This is going to be a flat button. You can see the shank on it. Pop that out real carefully. Wow, it's still got the gild on it, which is really awesome.
Oh, nice. That's gilded.
Yeah.
That looks like it could be a uniform, like a military button, no?
Virginia.
Yeah.
Virginia button.
It does look like an eagle.
Yeah, or something. That's why I said
like
it looks
standing
like a
eagle,
military.
the wing, maybe. Yeah. Could be a war of...
It doesn't ruin it by putting that on there, does it?
That is...
Dude!
It is.
That's
it's a Navy...
War of 1812, probably.
War of 1812? That'd be fascinating.
See the anchor and the eagle?
Oh, sorry, I'm in your light.
I sort of grew up with this, with an interest in history. You know, when other parents were, taking their kids to Disney World and ski vacations, my parents were always taking us to museums and Williamsburg or Gettysburg or whatever. So I always just had this interest in history, and then coming to work for AOPA, all of a sudden we had this new resource of being able to get out and get to some of these faraway places by airplane, and it just seemed like the perfect combination of two interests.
That is great. Can you see it under the...
Oh yeah, that's like...
Let me see, I want to look under there too.
I don't know for sure, we need to look it up, but I would bet it's that era.
War of 1812? Yeah, I think so.
Oh my God, oh my...
Well, you can read more about the thrill of the find in the October edition of AOPA Pilot Magazine.
And that's all for our show this week. Thanks for watching, and if you're looking for more, check out our YouTube channel.
And while you're there, don't forget to leave us a comment or send your thoughts to the email address on your screen. We'll see you next week.
There are many important things to consider before purchasing an aircraft. Let the experts at Aerospace Reports help guide you through the process. We combine expert knowledge with our long-standing commitment to personalized customer service to perfect your transaction. Learn more at aerospacereports.com.